Hi, students. Before you dive into chapter 3, there are just a couple of things that I wanted to give a brief overview on. So, we get the picture of the federal system, and it's as illustrated by the response of the coronavirus. That's the best example I like to use. For instance, when we went through the pandemic in early 2020, the 2019 by 2019 it started to spread right in the United States, and healthcare and disease responses became the responsibilities of the government. But how we progressed and how it was handled soon became a states' rights versus federal issue. President Trump had indicated that the federal government was merely a backup for the state. However, President Biden has said that he felt it was his duty to make sure that he protects everyone. So, the pandemic is a great example that we can use for federalism. As you're reading through your information, think about this. So, the United States has a federal government, just like the state has a state government. And there is no national public health authority. So that's why President Biden said, because there's no national public health authority, I, as the president, feel that I need to impose certain measures to protect everyone. But with that same clause, because there is no national public health authority, President Trump said, this is a state matter. We don't have anyone at the national level or an authority at the national level that can handle this type of pandemic and have adequate responses for all the states. So we had the economic lockdown in March of 2020, and there were some states that did lock down and some states that did not. 87% of the states that did lock down were Democratic or mixed control. And I've told other classes, but I was shocked that something like a pandemic could become political, but it did. Um, there were the assumptions that if you were a Republican, you're an anti-vaxxer and no mask, versus if you were a Democrat, you were fully vaccinated and fully believed in the mask. And there was that stereotype attached. Was it true? You know what? In some instances, I saw that that was not the case because you had subsets within each group. For instance, in Houston and in Harris County, our county judge, Judge Lena Hidalgo, she tried to incentivize um, some minority groups because we, as minorities, were not getting vaccinated, even though we were being impacted at alarming rates. And most Blacks vote Democrat, but yet there was a high percentage of Blacks who were not getting vaccinated or who were not wearing masks. So even though there was a stereotype of if you believe in the vaccination, if you believe in masking up, you're a Democrat versus Republican, eh, that's not necessarily always true. So within each state, you had the who's going to handle certain things. Um, Within our state of Texas, Governor Abbott came under fire by many in his camp voters, not his staff people. But many of his voters felt that he should have opened up our state a lot quicker, like maybe his conservative counterpart, Florida. And believe me, Texas opened up quite fine, but there were some who criticized him for not doing so quicker. Now, there were some who criticized him and said he shouldn't have done it at all. So, in something as unprecedented as a pandemic, Our leaders were going to be criticized no matter what they did. So, federalism and founding. You have several segments that talk about that. Please be sure to pay attention. For instance, the definition of confederation. It's a way of organizing government so that the lower level units retain most authority and can significantly limit the operation of the national government. Make sure you understand what that definition means. So, an alternate to confederation is a unitary system. Make sure you understand that definition. Lower level governmental units are simply extensions of the national government. In your Constitution, there are several powers that are given to the national government. Enumerated powers includes the ability to coin money, to raise an army, establish the postal system. You also have police powers, where states are allowed to regulate for health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. And states retain the power to do the things the government normally does. Now, remember, the states and the national government do actually share some powers, and those are called concurrent powers. I like to say the one thing that both state and federal government do is that they can tax, they can raise taxes. There is a chart in your reading that talks about federalism at the founding level, and it talks about what the federal powers can have, such as coining money, preparing to go to war, creating a postal service. And then it has what state powers have, such as regulating public health, which is what President Trump was saying, criminal justice, administering our elections. All our elections are done state by state. But then there are some things that they both can do, such as raising taxes, spending money, and borrowing money. Also, eminent domain. Both the federal and state have powers in eminent domain. There's a case called McCullough versus Maryland. And make sure you understand why it's important. In your readings, there's a lot of discussion about it. McCullough versus Maryland is important because it's a clear and early indication that the Supreme Court will favor national government in disputes. For instance, if there is a law, a national law that conflicts with anything a state law has, the state will usually sue or the national government could sue. And so McCullough versus Maryland is important because it indicates that if that happens, more than likely the Supreme Court will favor towards the national government. The Bill of Rights, it deals with the rights of individuals. So the 10th Amendment was included as a protection of the power of the states. And also you can find the Bill of Rights in the state constitution. This is something that you find in the the federal constitution and in the state constitution. And also in your reading, there's discussion about the historical evolution of federalism. So make sure that you are clear of that as well. So as we now have covered chapters 1, 2, and 3, we're getting close now to having our first set of assignments. Please make sure that you continue to look at your announcements section, and I will let you know when those assignments have been made. And of course, as always, you can reach me at my email address. I will be easily accessible. Thank you very much.